You've heard the President of the administration say that immigrants are thieves, that they bring in drugs, that they're responsible for lots of crime, that we have a crisis at our border, they're bringing in drugs and crime. This is the same type of propaganda that we heard in the 1920s and after World War I against Jews.
So Congressman Jerry Nadler slamming President Trump and making comparisons to Nazi Germany. Nadler isn't the only Democrat, though, making that analogy, because one could say many of them are at this point, and it's historically inaccurate, to say the very least. Now, the third-ranking House Democrat, James Clyburn, is also making that comparison as well. Clyburn telling NBC News, "I think it's time for the Congress, House, and Senate to grow spines and do what is necessary to protect this democracy. This man and his family are the greatest threats to democracy of our and my lifetime." Sounds a little like fear-mongering to me. So let's bring in conservative author and speaker David Harris, Jr., and former Obama campaign communications advisor, Democratic strategist Spencer Critchley. I'm going to start with you. Why don't we start with David at this point? Because when you're comparing, I don't even want to say this name, but when you're comparing President Trump to Hitler, a man that committed ethnic genocide, I think that's a bridge too far.
It's absolutely a bridge too far. It's a slap in the face of every Jewish person on the planet. It's a slap in the face to every American in this country, especially those that voted for and support our president. It's absolutely what you said it is. It's fear-mongering, and they're just trying to rile up the emotions of all the people that listen to the mainstream media and listen to these politicians, and get them to not look at the statistics that you've been talking about as far as how great the economy is. It's look at anything else and just paint him a racist and paint him the worst possible person you could in history. It's just disgusting. Yeah, well, Spencer, I mean, do we need to make that comparison of Hitler? Hitler is just such a horrible figure in history. And again, I don't think we're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the assertion that the president is doing serious damage to our country. I disagree, though, with the use of that kind of comparison. Of course, you can point to some of his behavior that mimics the behavior of authoritarians, including his apparent love affairs with dictators like Vladimir Putin and others, his near cult of personality that he's running at the expense of the way our democracy is supposed to run. But at the same time, Nazism is a horror almost without precedent or comparison in our history, and it's a level of evil that we should be very careful to make comparisons to. The other thing that happens if you make that sort of comparison, aside from, in my opinion, it being inappropriate, is that it brings to a halt any possibility of a useful conversation about what my side might see as the failings of the president. Exactly. That's exactly right. So, David, I mean, how can the president retaliate in this case? I mean, how can he respond? It's just so despicable when you have to bring up that name. I don't think the president should even have to retaliate. I think that it's enough that amazing business professionals and media professionals like yourself are calling it out for what it is. I'm thankful that Spencer agrees with me in that it's despicable, it's evil, it's vile. It's nothing that any political party should be doing to try to go after a president. But I have to disagree that this is with Spencer and the fact that he's a threat to democracy. He's absolutely a threat to globalism. That's what he's taking on, and that's what the globalists and the politicians on the Democrat side are afraid of. They're afraid of losing their jobs. Yeah. And that's one thing that Donald Trump is doing, is creating a lot of jobs, a lot of economic opportunity and growth for Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, women, and all Americans. He's putting America first, and I'm very proud of him for that. Yeah, that would be, some would say that's the definition of democracy, and that's the American way, right? To enrich yourself, to make your lives better, to bring yourself up a level. Isn't that the American dream, Spencer? What's wrong with that? Well, I would dispute those claims about the economy. I think President Trump inherited a very strong economy, and he managed to slow it down. And I'm surprised when I hear conservatives. I'm surprised when I hear conservatives endorsing what President Trump has been doing, because it's not at all conservative. I'm surprised to hear them applauding when a president interferes with the actions of private corporations, for example, which I would think they would call socialism. I'm surprised when they talk when they're approving the creation of a enormous
looking, okay,
amounts
so
of
I'll
debt.
give you a comparison. The deficit and debt under Obama was, so $2 trillion has been created under President Trump in the last few years. That is still less on an annual average basis than during the Obama years. And look at the job creation. You're looking at the best jobs market in 50 years and the longest bull market, by the way, that's hit 10 years. Bull markets don't last 10 years, mind you. So in order to extend that, that's a hard job to do.
Well, President Trump, as I've said before, is really good at inheriting things, and he inherited a doozy of economy from President Obama, and that expansion was going for something like 6 or 7 years by the time he inherited it from him. He slowed down the rate of job creation, and again, I'm surprised to hear conservatives thinking it's a good idea to do a massive stimulus program through a tax cut when the economy is strong, when unemployment is low. When President Obama had to create some debt, it was when Keynes said you should do it.
Economic growth also has to end at some point as well. In order to prolong that and to prevent that from happening, you do have to make these moves like cutting taxes for one, getting business going again, because it was so uncompetitive, the corporate tax rate compared to the rest of the world, the highest in the OECD. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
I think that I think there was agreement that we should reform taxes.
I want to give credit to Obama for what Donald Trump has done, especially when Obama came out and said before he left office, he didn't even want to mention Donald Trump's name, but he said he doesn't have a magic wand. All these jobs are not going to come back. And now he's trying to take credit for it. And now liberals are trying to give Obama credit for it. It's hilarious. It's like, wake up, America. What are they thinking?
Yeah.
It's just funny. I'm sorry. It's funny.
All right,
well,
guys.
Again, we could pursue the Keynesian argument, but I think the original topic that we were onto here was this comparison, which I think we agree was extreme. But I think also that when we're talking about democracy, we're talking both about the economy, which I would argue your points, but I also talk about attacks on the free press and other democratic institutions, which are at least equally serious.
David, Spencer, we have to pay some bills, but thank you so much for your time tonight. Now, coming up, President Trump expected to make a major announcement.